look now, but the Broncos are absolutely rolling. Denver is 8-5, and now the team has its bye week before the final stretch of the season. The Broncos controlling their own playoff destiny. Remember, the Broncos haven't been to the playoffs since the 2015 season. Now it is report card time. Joining me are your CBS Sports anchors, Rod Mackey and Richie Casalino. So, guys, let's break this down through 13 games heading into the home stretch. Rod, what are you giving the Broncos offense in
First of all, should we give Karen a shout-out? Because Karen, early on, before anyone, predicted the Broncos were going to the playoffs.
She knew it.
So we need to give her a shout-out.
Yeah.
I was a doubter. I'm now a believer.
You're a Bo
I'm a Bo believer. And I'm going to be like all the teachers that I got in high school on the opposite. I always had the hard graders. I'm going easy graders. I mean, it's an A. If you can find anything that's not an A on this team right now, I don't know what it is. They've been, on offense, tremendous. Bo obviously has sparked this team like they had hoped. I think it's even more than they had hoped. He's not turning the ball over, and to me, that's still really the key, is the fact that he doesn't turn this thing over, because you're not putting your defense in a hole, and even if you're not scoring a ton of touchdowns, you're still putting your team in position to win. That's what he's done. I'm going A for the Broncos across.
He certainly doesn't look like a typical rookie quarterback through 13 games this season. You agree with the A on offense?
Absolutely, and I'll give him this as well. Bo is the guy who, as you said, doesn't make the mistake, but is also developing on a week-to-week basis.
Yep.
The throw he made to Marvin Mims on Monday is a throw that we haven't seen him make all year. But as Sean Payton has more confidence in him, as he opens up the playbook, he's making throws that looks like a veteran quarterback can make, right in that hole in the defense for 7 points and a 93-yard touchdown.
It's been really fun to see those two guys, the head coach and the quarterback, really kind of click. On the other side of the ball, boy, they gave up a ton of yards against the Browns on Monday Night Football, but had 3 interceptions, including 2 pick sixes, so it's all good. What do you like about what you've seen out of this defense
And
so
again,
far?
I'm going A as well, and you really nailed it, because they did. They how can you give up that many yards and that many points to a bad Browns team, and yet when it mattered most, they stepped up and got it done. And that's what this team has done. While Bo hasn't turned it over, the Denver defense has got the turnovers. Pat Surtain today named the Defensive Player of the Month. Nick Bonito is just going to cash in. He has been unstoppable rushing the quarterback. And VJ, man, you got to give him a shot to be a head coach again next season, because they've been just tremendous.
What a turnaround. Remember Miami last year? And everybody was like, fire Vance Joseph, fire Vance Joseph. And now it's like, oh, he might get a promotion out of what he's done this year.
Crazy how that works, right? And what I love the most is the Jonathan Cooper, Nick Bonito combination. It's not just Bonito that's getting these sacks and getting these pressures. It's the whole unit. Zach Allen has looked great on the interior as well. So as you talked about with Vance Joseph, what a turnaround this team has had from one of the worst a few years ago to now one of the best, top 3 in sacks. And it might be good that Cleveland game exposed a little bit of their weaknesses. Riley Moss being out, I think, was a big key to them giving up those points, allowed Jerry Jeudy to kind of open up. But hey, now you're in the home stretch. I'd say that a bit of a weakness, a bit of exposure now allows them to set aside what they need to do for next week.
Richie mentioned Riley Moss, and that's one thing I want to point out is the fact that, knock on wood, the Broncos have been healthy this season, and it shows you what happens when one of their best players go down. When he went down, this defense went down, and that's the thing about this Broncos team as well. Offense, defense, special teams, they have stayed healthy for the most part, and you see what happens when they lose one of their key players. He is a tough position to fill.
And you talk about Nick Bonito getting paid. Riley Moss's agent loved what he saw on Monday night because his client was thinking dollar signs too. Special teams, you mentioned them. What do you think?
Again, why not an A? I mean,
this is so easy.
How would you not give him an A? I mean,
you think the Broncos were undefeated and sitting atop the AFC West standings?
The punts last week were insane. I mean, it was boot after boot. Will Lutz has been named the Special Teams Player of the Week a couple times. He's hitting them from 50 left and right. I mean, there really is nothing to. I mean, they're not the Philadelphia Eagles. They're not the Detroit Lions. They're still not the Chiefs who find ways to win. They got smoked by the Ravens, but they are a playoff team. We are seeing that. They are. I mean, it would be beyond shocking now with the 2-game lead if they're not a playoff team.
Keep on knocking on wood.
Right. We've seen this Bronco team.
I don't know. It
falter. Not this team,
but it feels like a different team. It feels like a different.
What do you make of the job the coaching staff is doing this year?
A phenomenal job. You know, Sean Payton, we talked about this roster coming in, and we thought there wasn't a roster that was playoff capable just based on the pieces they had. But when Bo got confident, thanks to Sean Payton's game plan, with Vance Joseph's defensive schemes, pressuring the quarterbacks like crazy, I mean, it's hard not to give them an A across the board simply because of how well they've done. And I'd even extend that to the front office as well.
Yeah.
You look at what George Payton has done with this draft. Guys like Jonah Ellis. Again, I'll bring up Jonathan Cooper, who was a 7th-round pick a couple of years ago. From top to bottom, this Broncos team has exceeded expectations.
What he said about the draft is interesting, too, because we talked to Justin Sternad last week.
Exactly.
2020. He's the only guy left. Jerry Jeudy. Why can't we have a guy like that? I mean, he was unbelievable against the Broncos. He wasn't like that when he was a Bronco. Look at that draft class and compare it to what they've done this year. I'm with Richie. They give it to the ownership, too. And also, they are the ones that put these pieces into place to have the success that is that they've had.
All right, so you look at the rest of the schedule here. The Broncos have Indy at home, the Chargers on a Thursday night in L.A., and then the Bengals on the road. And then they end the season with the Chiefs at Mile High. How does this final four-game stretch go for Denver?
You hope the Chiefs game is a meaningless game.
Right.
For them, right?
Kansas City is benching their starters. Really,
because
both. Why not?
That would be, that's what you're really hoping for. I think the toughest one on the schedule is at Cincinnati. I've been saying that. However, the Bengals I'm almost giving up on them. They're just not the team I thought they were. The Colts game is going to be a monstrous game because even though they're 2 games back, that is the only one, the head-to-head that you're.
Richie, any concern because there's this narrative that maybe the Broncos are feasting on the teams that are in the bottom half of the AFC, and then when they play good teams like what we saw against Baltimore, what we saw earlier in the year against Pittsburgh, they end up on the losing side of games. Any concern about that for you?
There are 3 tiers in the AFC right now. There's the true contenders, the Buffalo, the Baltimore Ravens, and we've seen what happens when you play a guy like Lamar Jackson. But right now, Denver doesn't have to worry about that. They're in the top half. They have their team kind of set where they need to be. You beat Indianapolis next week. You take care of business. You're basically in the playoffs no matter what. Then you're playing for positioning. You play the Chargers. You could sneak up to the 6th seed.
That would be big.
That'd be a big one. That'd be a tough one because you got Justin Herbert,
and
Joe
you've
Burrow.
Lost the first one, so you're already behind on that.
So right. The simple answer is, you're going to have problems perhaps against Buffalo in Buffalo as a 2 versus 7. I think at this point we take that, though. For me, it's simple as handle business against Indianapolis, the team you're supposed to beat, probably should beat. And then you're all about playoff positioning at that point. And then you get into the playoffs, you're snapping streaks one more time. This team's on its way up.
Yeah, you guys have both covered this team for a long time. I, of course, covered it for a long time as well. It's nice to be sitting here in early December talking about the playoffs and having it be realistic and not talking about with one more loss, they're officially eliminated.
The draft for next year.
Exactly. Yes, it's a good time to be a Broncos fan and to be covering the team, which, of course, you guys do incredibly well. Rod and Richie, thanks so much for joining us. Again, the next game for the Broncos coming up is against the Colts at Mile High. That will be on Sunday, December 15th. You can see that game on CBS Colorado. Kickoff is at 2:25. Your CBS Sports Colorado team has you covered. Romy, Rod, and Richie will have all the latest on the Broncos and the rest of your favorite teams right here on CBSColorado.com. Stay with us. We'll be right back.